Annual 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten celebration. The New Hampshire 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten is an early literacy initiative that encourages families to read to their young children and to use the resources of their public libraries. The Chesley Memorial Library and Northwood School teamed up to start the program in our community with help from Linda Kramus, Ellen Gibson, Nicole Bolduc, and Diane Kazarian. The Friends of the Library offered to provide financial support for the program, and we started with a 100 Books Before Club that kicked off in January of 2015, and we rolled into the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten this last fall. Now we're here to celebrate the accomplishments of our young readers and their families, and thank you, families, because we know that you're the reason these children met their goals. We'll be recognizing all of our participants entering kindergarten this fall, and we'll be celebrating all our young readers who actually met their 1,000 book goal. School librarian Melissa Moore will announce our participants. School Board Chair Keith McGuigan will present the certificates of achievement, and Library Trustee Chair Gail Toby will present them with reading medals.
All right. Okay, I'll go right up there. Well, this is a wonderful evening, and congratulations to all the families and readers. We're really wonderful to welcome you here. It's a great accomplishment. So I would like to recognize the gold medal winners, reading 1,000 books, and Liam Cooper. Come right up here, Liam. We have some things in the bookmark for you. And then there's a certificate.
Can you say thank you? And
You're welcome.
This is like the Olympics.
And Abigail Costanza. And look, Mr. McQueen has something for you. Good job.
And also, you get a medal. Congratulations.
Good job.
And we have Evelyn Seavey. Would you like to come up, Evelyn? Hi, nice to meet you. Congratulations. There's a bookmark, and here's your certificate, Evelyn. And there's your medal.
Good job, Evelyn.
And Nora Seavey, would you come up, please? Thank you.
You get a gold medal also.
Good job.
And Mabel Wilson.
Winslow.
I'm sorry, Winslow, yes. Mabel. Come right. Congratulations, good job. Good job. And with your medal.
Good job, Mabel.
And Miles Winslow. Okay, Miles.
Oh, he doesn't want to come.
He's like, what's going on?
This is your gold medal. I'm going to put it around your neck because you're a winner.
Good job, Miles.
And then we'd also like to recognize these three people who are entering kindergarten. They have earned silver medals. Peter Ferris, Nora Nalid, and Marlena Thorne. We'll give them a round of applause. Thank you.
We do have one thing that we'd like to have a short discussion on in non-public, so if somebody could make a motion to do that under RSA 91A3 parts A and C, 2A and C.
So moved.
And I'll second that.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
What are we discussing?
We're discussing one of the requests, personnel request.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We are now at opening public comment. If anyone would like to briefly speak from the public, now's your opportunity. Seeing none, we'll close opening public comment. Absent objection from the board, I would like to move forward something from our agenda, the resigned staff request. That's listed as F1 to now, so we can get that out of the way. I believe there's a letter in the packet requesting a waiver from the July insurance payment and the $100 penalty for breaking contract. You guys know
I
what page
moved.
it's on?
Oh, sorry, I was going to move it.
Go ahead, you can move it.
Okay. I moved
I believe
to,
you said the 349 professional development in there, or maybe I...
Do we want to take that
I
up
was gonna do this
differently?
separately.
Okay.
but-
I moved to accept, to waive the July insurance and the $100 penalty for Lisa LaBella as per her request.
Second. Any discussion?
A couple of things. So I just want to clarify, Dr. Godomsky, it's my understanding that it's public knowledge whether somebody is receiving single-payer insurance, family insurance, or two-payer.
No, I don't believe it is. It's the public.
Cases we can't talk about, I was told, but that was a change about 2 years ago, because for years, we couldn't talk about insurance in any
Right.
form as the cost, but because it's paid for by taxpayers, a decision was made, or,
I believe you can, usually when we give information on benefits, we lump all benefits together. And we don't single out an insurance, because then you can identify exactly what that, whether it's a single or what the family situation is or things like that.
what would be the problem with that?
Some people don't want that happening.
Okay. I'll check into that. Okay, thank you.
Any other-
So, discussion, I just want the public to be aware of what's going on here. So, I was one of the negotiators last year for the teacher contract, and in that teacher contract, the concern the board and I had was that we have occasions when a teacher signs a contract, then goes and finds another job, and then wants to get out of the original contract. And I really personally have a problem with that. So we negotiated into the contract where if that happens, they would have to pay a $100 fine, and they would also have to pay for the insurance, the summer insurance that seemed unfair taxpayers should pay when they went out and got another job. We also recognize, and I certainly agree with recognizing, that there are extenuating circumstances. There's a major difference between someone who has a personal issue and needs to move versus somebody who cold-bloodedly has a contract and goes out and finds another one where they make more money. So, and this is a personal issue, and so I'm certainly going to vote in favor of the waiver.
Thanks. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. The second part of the request was some personal development, professional development course that was taken for a sum of $349.99 that she was requesting reimbursement for under her professional development. A motion for that.
Motion to approve the $349.99 for reimbursement for Lisa LaBella for an online or recorded course or.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
I'd just like to know, what was the reasoning for, so looking through the documentation that was submitted to me, it was approved by the committee, it was approved by Ms. Cremoni, it was approved by Ms. Daypre. So I'm just wondering why, and I understand the 10-week thing, what it says in there. So I'm just, for me, I don't understand the reasoning behind it, so that's what I'm asking, is why it was not approved.
Yeah, this is an interesting situation, because I think that this is language that I would suggest is cleaned up in the negotiations. Because if you look in the contract, it doesn't it says coursework. It says course and workshops and conferences. And it doesn't really define coursework. And in the paperwork that was submitted, and I agree that it went through the Professional Development Committee and was signed off, and then when it came to me, I looked at it further. This is a certificate program. In the registration, it says 10-week online course. And it says course registration ends soon. This is a 10-week certificate program. So I guess it comes down to clarifying the language in the contract. Is coursework only when credits are attached to it? Or are there other forms of coursework? So, this is a 10-week online course with certificate along the way that can be earned and submitted. So that's why I determined it to be a course.
So I guess because it's not clear in or not clear in the contract, or not clear there or whatever, I mean, I feel like, for me personally, I feel like she should be reimbursed for it, but I don't know.
I mean, going through the
I mean, it's.
professional development committee, seems like at least she thought it was professional development and put out her money for it, right? With the understanding she would get reimbursed.
Right.
And I believe she even told she would get reimbursed a number of times.
And did it only come to you, Bob, because she hadn't been reimbursed for it? Or
Yeah, it came at the end with reimbursement. And
because she hadn't been reimbursed?
correct.
Okay,
Yeah, there was a request for reimbursement. And at that point in time, it was, I don't know, June or something like
Right,
that.
July.
We were closing out the book, so that's why it came up.
okay. So normally, I mean, looking at it, it should have been caught by someone else if they didn't think it was correct.
Right, if they thought it was a course, it should have come down and gotten approved through the superintendent's
Okay,
office.
so she did go through the right channels if she, okay, I just want to make sure. So I guess everything was done the right way. It was just a misinterpretation that I guess I do feel like she should be reimbursed for it.
The only other thing I would add is, to this point, we've got certificate of completion for, all I have so far is up to week 2, so I don't know if there's additional certificates along with that as well.
Okay.
That's the difference. Any other discussion? You guys happy? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Thank you. Okay, so that's done. As Ms. D'Alessandro is here, and I don't think we're gonna have her here for the whole night, absent the board's objection, I'd like to move our 2 bus requests up in the agenda as well to now. We have a revised temporary bus routes and a parent bus request. So everyone you want to start with, if you'd like to talk about the,
I'd like to probably get the bus request done with first.
Okay.
Is that the Gaviat Green?
Yeah, yep.
Can you set up the microphone, please? It's on, it should be on.
You can move it up here.
What's that?
You could move
Yeah,
it.
that would make me feel better.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gaviat Green, I haven't seen it in writing. I don't think it was sent to me, but we discussed it on the phone.
Mhm.
Okay. That's route number 2. She comes in from the Bow Lake Road end. And at the junction of Sherburne Hill and Ridge Road, sharp right-hand turn, Gaviat is on the left. I don't feel it's safe to stop on that corner and cross students to get to the bus. And since Gaviat has been established well over 5-6 years ago, they've been waiting at Angela Drive for us. And that's what I've asked to continue.
so it would be just stopping, you just don't want to stop on that corner? is what-
Correct.
And why, I guess? Just, what's the problem?
If we were to stop so we were visible to the cars coming from Ridge Road,
Yeah,
Co-Brown traffic,
right.
we'd have to be almost completely around the corner. So then the kids are walking up beside the bus, getting in front of it, and then to get on.
I realize the kids have to go all the way down that road anyway, right? To get to Angela Drive, aren't they walking on the same side of the road?
Most of them are parents dropping them there or waiting with them in the past.
Anyone else have any questions about this or discussion? Would we
How many kids are we talking about?
Maybe it would be okay if we had the
10.
petitioners answer some of that, so Tiffany or Misty, if you guys wanted to.
Looked like 10.
Yeah, we spoke on the phone. Hi, I'm Tiffany Fuller. I'm the one that wrote the letter. So the request is, I mean, we're open to suggestions. We're not necessarily asking to stop right on the corner. And my understanding is that there is already a kindergarten stop there. So we're not asking to add something that's not already there. As of April, there were 10 children that potentially could ride that bus. And right now, those children have to go to Angela Drive. For some children, that's 3/4 of a mile. These are children who are in K through 2. So, you know, it's unsafe for the bus to be in that area, but it seems unsafe for K through 2 to have to walk on Ridge Road in the winter, in my opinion. Yes, we drive the children to school, but I would like to not have to do this loop in the morning. I'd like to be able to not have to drive to another development to drop the child off either. So we're talking about 10 children now. There are more houses being built. So by fall, we're talking about 12 children that have to be moved to another bus stop.
Misty?
Hi, I'm Misty Erickson, and while Tiffany had said that there is a kindergarten stop, I do want to, which I'm sure you would say, it is going the opposite direction. So possibly in a few, I know it might be too late for this year, but in a future year, reversing that route, has that ever been talked, so that it is the kids, rather than coming to make a right turn where the development is on the left, making it so the turn is a left turn and the kids are right there. But you had also mentioned that that's unsafe for the kids to cross in front of the bus. They are crossing in front of the bus during pickup and drop off currently right now at Angela Drive. So they do have to stop and cross Ridge Road. So I just wanted to add that difference between the kindergarten stop and then that they are crossing in front of the bus currently.
So you've talked to other parents, I mean, this is, you think 10 more kids would be using the bus if there was a stop
we're
there?
an association, so there's 20 houses in the subdivision, and we talked about it we have an annual meeting, so we talked about it as an agenda item, and the parents and even people who are not parents agreed that this is something that we would like to see offered. And we understand that the bus can't come into the subdivision, so we'd at least like to be able to have the bus come closer so that children don't have to walk to Angela Drive. I mean, I've been driving down Ridge Road in the morning and offered to drive children to the Angela Drive stop because in the winter, the snowbanks force the children to walk down the middle of Ridge Road, and I think it's very dangerous. So, I don't know street numbers, but I mean, I think there are houses closer to that curve where you're the expert, but I think there are houses where the bus could stop, so it's not on a curve if it can't stop on the curve. And ideally, you know, it would be preferred if the bus didn't have to force the kids to cross the street. But with a growing development and more children moving in, I know that in the fall 2 more kids are moving in, so, you know, there's 2 more kids coming. Thank you.
Follow up.
The ridership's never been very high from Gaviat, and we do cross at Angela, but we're on the straight stretch. Visibility is much better. And again, kindergarten does, this year again, go the opposite direction that the elementary route did. The elementary route goes in the way it does because we want it empty close to the end of Ridge Road, because quite often we're bringing kids back to school and it makes it a closer, shorter distance to get them back so that bus can continue on to its high school route. But I am open to suggestions on how you'd like me to handle this.
Do you see any possibility of getting something closer? Like, I know it's not being perfect.
None of the driveways would be good enough to keep them safe. Just walking is a concern, and
Right.
most of the time we have in the past seen parents sitting with them at Angela.
Right.
You know, so the other driveways don't have kids in the school system that direction towards Gaviat, either way. So If we have to pull around the corner and have them walk up beside the bus, that's possible, but not suggested because there's a chance they're walking within the danger zone, which is the 10 feet around the bus. So,
I've been asking all questions. Any other board members have any questions about this, or?
It's a really pain in the neck interchange. So the road that continues down, that's even almost closed in the winter, right?
Gaviette itself?
No.
Well,
So
when
on
you-
the corner where you turn left on Sherburne, and you continue straight,
Like Bennett Bridge Road?
that's not
Bridge,
plowed,
yeah.
it's a
Oh, it's not
non-maintained
town-maintained.
road
Right, right.
Brian?
in the winter, so it's really not passable for cars or anything.
Are they plowing through now?
It is. There's actually about a 10th of a mile from the corner of Ridge Road and Sherburne Hill into the entrance of Gaviot Green. That's actually called Bennett Bridge Road, and then it turns into the,
Yeah.
Right.
that is not maintained, that dirt road.
After
that
Gaviot.
goes, correct.
Right.
So there, it's about a 10th of a mile that is town maintained. And so I didn't know, maybe even another suggestion too, I know in a couple of places, they used to do it at Course End, and I think at Temperance Hill, the bus does have to reverse, don't they?
Yeah, we
Park
have
somewhere and
turnarounds,
reverse.
yes.
So could there be a turnaround there? Maybe you turn a left and then park right there so that you are totally off the traffic. You're on that little 10th of a mile and then reverse out and then go
By
that way.
state guidelines, they recommend we pick up before backing,
Okay.
okay?
right.
Because you don't want to
Right.
back into an area where kids are waiting.
I 100% agree. So if you took that left turn and parked there, picked up the kids, and then did the reverse.
Backed into that corner?
No, so if you're on Sherburne Hill, and instead of taking that sharp right onto Ridge, you would just take that sharp left, and then pick up right there, and then back up onto Sherburne Hill, and then continue to take a right onto Ridge Road. I don't know.
You know, the corner's visibility, I'm
Yeah.
uncomfortable with.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And you had also mentioned that a lot of the parents are at Angela. It's because we won't allow our kids to walk on Ridge Road. So all of the parents do have to come to Angela. We don't have an option unless we want our third graders or
Well,
first
I
graders walking on Ridge
compliment
Road.
you for
Yes,
that.
so.
That-
that was-
And that has to be talked about in this discussion, because I was astounded at not only the amount of traffic, that is a little tiny, crappy, at best, road, Sherburne Hill. It's an awful road. It should be fixed, but there's another issue in why it's not getting fixed. But the speed by teenagers through that area from Stratford going to Co-Brown is really awful. So I'm not against the bus stop. I honestly, as usual, don't feel that we have enough information. I don't think that a school board should sit here and come up with a plan. I think somebody needs to go out and look at it and come up with a plan with Mrs. D'Alessandro and look at it. I'm not against doing something, but there are 2 or 3 variables between a crappy road, a speedy road, a sharp cornered road, and one road that is not maintained at all by the town, and another road or series of roads in Gaviot that are not owned or taken care of by the town. So there's just a confluence of issues there that I would be really uncomfortable with another rapid decision tonight. You know, I think we should look at that, and maybe for the first week or so, they would have to go to Angela Drive, but I certainly don't mind looking into this. I feel their pain. There is a series of issues at that corner that I think all of us need to look at.
I just want to ask a question, because I've driven up past the area, but I'm not hugely familiar with it, so I pulled it up here on Google Maps. So just explain to me, what is the issue about going up Bennett Bridge Road and turning right onto Gaviot and going around the circle and then left?
That bus does not do that part of Bow Lake Road, a different route does that part of Bow Lake Road? Bennett's Bridge
I
is a
think she meant
good.
from the other side, she meant the Ridge Road.
So like, you come up Ridge Road
Okay.
and then you'd turn right onto Gaviot Green.
We're coming up Bow Lake Road.
Okay, so
but
let me
let's
show you
look
what I'm
at the
talking
map.
about, just because I'm like, I just want to make sure. So if you come up this way and you go around this way and then go back, because if the kids are coming down to Angela Drive here, like, so, and if the stop was here or here, I mean, at the, like at one of the entrances of Gavia, I don't know. And again, I don't know, it's just a suggestion, because I don't know if that's doable, but just going up and around and making one stop, but still not down on Angela Road.
It's doable,
Okay.
but we have 10 other developments that are in the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's extending the routes, extending the mileage, extending the time. If we start doing it for one, if we can come up with a safer location on an existing route, it would be a lot easier for everyone involved.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at Angela Drive and thinking, I didn't realize that there was that much space in between. I mean, last year we voted as a school board because we didn't want kids walking,
Right.
you know, and to look at that now, I think, why did we vote yes on that? I should pull up a Google map all the time to look at that.
I don't think you're looking at the situation that Gaviot starts at a non-maintained road. So that's part of the problem. And the roads in that development are not, they're very nice roads, but they're not town-owned roads. So we can't even take the bus and go inside there, which would be the normal in something as large as that is. Normally, a school bus would go in there and make a circle and come back out.
No, our school bus is not allowed to go on non-town maintained roads.
That's correct, yes. Well, it's, we can't go on a non-maintained, but it's not, Gaviot is not a town road.
I know, yeah.
All of those are not town roads.
I wouldn't recommend it
Yeah.
with plowing, 'cause
Yes.
it's private plowing. It's
Yes,
not that great.
you know, we're at the mercy of somebody else, and we don't want that.
Yep.
You know, we don't have anybody to yell at like your husband
Well, he's back there somewhere.
when things go wrong.
My only comment is, I understand it may be a dangerous intersection. If it's dangerous for a bus to stop there, it makes me really nervous to think that there are little kids walking around there that are much less visible than the bus and, you know, much more exposed. I personally would very much like to see us do something, if we can, for this. I mean, we have a number of kids there, we're gonna have more kids there. We have a drop-off problem here at school, so the more people we can get on the buses, that'll lessen our drop-off issues with Route 4.
We had a bus get hit on that corner. She wasn't making a stop, but
No.
a kid slid right into her as she was turning the corner. I mean, it's
Right.
tough, but
Yeah.
that's a decision.
And this is why
We
we
can make-
drive 10 extra cars into this drop-off loop.
Right.
You can't temporarily, till we work this out, drive them to Angela so
Well,
we
we've
can.
been doing that for
Okay.
5+ years. And as the development grows, now it's becoming more of, now we're here at the school board to try to make a change. So I was just curious why we allow the kindergarten stop there. Why
Go in the
was-
other
Because
direction.
it's
Go in
going
the other
the other direction. We don't have to cross kids on a
Oh.
corner that's not
Oh,
very
okay.
visibly open to the other cars coming the other direction. And that route is set up that way because she's got others going that way and she's continuing on to the west end of town.
So what does it entail to change the direction of the bus for the morning? I know it's not gonna
Let's-
happen this year, but if it's something
That's something we can
for next
think about for
year,
later, but probably
because
not
this
now.
means Angela crosses the street, Knowles Way crosses the street.
In visible locations, not on a corner. I'm not trying to argue with you, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
explain
I just-
how I look at stops. You know, I try not to set them up,
Yeah.
you know, even on knolls that aren't visible on the other side as best I can.
Just, it's strange to me to have large groups of kids cross the street, but I follow a bus coming down Ridge Road that stops at every other house, and those kids get picked up curbside, yet the subdivisions would, you know, large groups of kids walking up to the bus, they all cross the street. I'm just asking, it's just a question.
So
If there's
let's-
any rationale behind that.
It's, again, the number of stops, the distance, not the distance they have to walk, but the narrowness of the road, like by Sky Farm Road, that's real narrow part for kids to walk to another stop. Or, we're trying to stop halfway between and get kids to, but we have a lot of parents, not even wanting to share driveways with one another, so that's something we need to push and get the support of the school board to possibly do that and tighten up the number of stops and make them wait in their neighbor's yard, you know. I try to avoid when I get the conflicts, and I I'll be honest, I give because I need to keep them from bothering you because you have much more important things to be doing. And that's how we've done it for years. You know, if you, as a school board, wants me to stop at that stop, I will do it.
So does there have to be a child riding at a particular house to get the bus to stop at that house? So, for example, one of the houses on Ridge Road that's closer than Angela Drive.
Can we take this offline and maybe you guys could talk and we can have our meeting? And it's fine, but we do have a lot of stuff to do tonight.
So where are we ending up on this? Are we
Well,
going
we
to look at it? Is somebody going to go with Mr. D'Alessandro and look at the thing and try to come up with a solution, or?
Are you
What did this
volunteering?
state do years ago with One Stop? We had a question. We called the state down to look at it. Someone with Department of Ed. I don't think you were here. I don't think any of you were here then. You were here. Old Turnpike Road.
I mean, is this something you think we could do before school starts and enough time to get parents known about it?
Tim, do you have time to ride around with her and look at the
I do.
things? Okay, I was gonna say, because I know I only have Thursdays off, so. Do you have time to ride around with, or,
I've
meet
got to
Tim?
get my new students going for my route starts for Tuesday, so I got to get up and rolling for Tuesday. I don't have time, so.
We're
I have
really
all
talking for our next meeting, so that's 2 weeks away.
Yes, we
So-
can get
so-
it done before 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If we were to
Yes.
do that, well, 2 weeks, we'd be in school already. So the buses, I mean, it would be changing the route.
Yes,
on the
but they've
fly.
lived the way they've lived for some time
Yeah,
now.
but the change wouldn't be
It wouldn't be that-
drastic enough to affect the timing of
Okay.
the route.
That's, I just want to make sure of that. Right, so that
Yeah.
was the
I
case.
just want to make sure we're making a safe stop.
Yep.
That is my
Yeah, so let's,
concern.
So
I think everyone's in agreement that
Betsy
we'll,
has my number, you call me when you have some.
Yep.
Okay.
and, yeah, creative solutions are appreciated.
Yes, definitely. I'm willing to work with you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Don't go anywhere.
Okay. So the next on our agenda is the unfortunate request from myself to you to temporarily eliminate Route 7. Notice from a driver in June that he was not returning, and then a written resignation in the mail on the 3rd or 4th of August from another driver. I had emailed the temporary route adjustments to you, but on route number 6, the terminology on the bottom was incorrect. So I'd like to hand out the new sheets. I'll pass those two there. Down at the bottom, I believe I had written Bull Lake Road on both of the routes, Route 4 and Route 6.
I was wondering about that.
I figured you'd be the one to pick up on that, because that entitles you.
Yeah, thank you.
What's Route 7? I'm not at all aware that we have a Route 7 here.
Yeah.
We had 7 elementary routes last year.
Oh, that kind of a route, all right. I thought you meant a road named Route 7.
No.
Okay.
I know. So the summaries I gave you explained how I would take parts of Route 7 and put it onto Route 6 and the other part of Route 7 onto Route 4. The routes extended both mileage and time-wise, size of ridership without any new students except the kindergartners, because that's all I have for new student registration at this point. We're up to 68 on Route 6 and 69 on Route 4. But again, I have not seen the new student registrations yet,
What's the capacity?
77.
68, 69.
I'm asking that this be temporary. I had 2 drivers in training. One just did not return calls well into the training. I have not been able to get a hold of her. The second one is still working on the written part of her exam. And we're working with her as often as possible to prepare her for the written. When you fail one part of the written, you have to wait 10 business days to go back to take it again. So she is going back 10 days from last Friday. I do believe there's other schools with similar hardships. I'm not trying to cry on your shoulder here, but I don't know what's happening. I'm just, drivers are just not as dedicated. I think they're getting a little frustrated with the discipline and issues that the kids are having nowadays. So I apologize this has happened. I'll be on a route, but I enjoy every minute of it. My dispatcher will be on a route, so I have a part-time dispatcher in the office to handle phone calls. Any questions about the way the route has been revised?
The temporary is, what's your guess as to when the route would be?
I'd like to ask
Established.
for at least 60 days from the start of school and re-meet if we have similar problems or still the same problem, and then possibly have to go into financial revisions and keep it at just 6 routes. But I don't feel that is to the benefit of the kids to keep it at 6. The time frames I've given you, that's on a really, really good day. You know, rolling smoothly, no extra delays whatsoever. So I feel the time they're going to be on the bus is much longer than any child should be on a bus.
Any comments, questions about this?
I just don't hear any choice.
Right.
That's what I'm
Right.
hearing. I'm not hearing any choice.
Yeah. Are we going to get our billing adjusted for that time as well?
You're adding the mileage and time onto 2
other
existing
routes, you're
routes.
saying? I see.
So I will fully discuss this if it becomes permanent, I promise you. We already know the numbers from prior negotiations at this time last year of what it will cost for the 6 buses, and those
Right.
numbers will be the ones that I go with. But I don't want to go that avenue.
Mhm.
Okay?
Yep, that's fine, that's fine.
I shouldn't be behind the wheel of the bus to run the business as best I can.
Any problems with changing bus routes after a couple of months? Do you guys see any issues with that, or?
We'll make it work.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Did we have a motion?
Do we have a motion? Maybe we didn't, sorry. Do we need a motion?
I think we need a motion. So I'll make a motion that we approve Ms. Delasandro's bus changes for the period of 2 months, ensuring that she worked with us in between and let us know what's going on. And then I have a comment, I think. if I
All right,
can
so
remember
I'll
what
second,
it was.
I'll second that. Okay, go, do you remember your comment? Or do you want to?
Yes. So I think it behooves us, as soon as possible, to somehow portray what's going on to the parents, so that they're not all of a sudden finding their kids on the bus for longer than they expected, and we start getting all kinds of calls that, you know, I think we should just be proactive, is what I'm saying. And let them know what's going on, and we're trying to address it as fast as we can.
The temporary routes have been posted on the website pending school board approval. There's a separate tab on my website
Okay.
for that. And I did leave the old Route 7 on there because I am hopeful that it will come back soon.
Do you think that might be confusing to people who are going to look and see where they're, with this change? You know what I
can
mean?
just delete Route 7.
Take it off
If
tomorrow.
you
Yeah.
leave Route 7, could you just write currently canceled?
Or, yeah, or something,
currently
yeah, some
in
way of
remission
it.
Or something,
Right,
just
right.
something
The
that
old
you
Route 4 and old Route 6 are there too, so just
Yeah.
deleting them.
Yeah, or to move them somewhere else on the website. I just don't want parents to be confused by looking at it and be like, oh, we're on bus 7 and it's supposed to be here at this time, and then it turns out that doesn't.
Because if they go to the old one, it tells them to go to the temporary, but I'll delete it. I'm not the best
be-
web designer.
I can
believe
help
me.
you if you need.
Can you write up a short blurb to go along with that, also explaining why we're down 1 bus route and the condensing? Just put that in the same place. And if you can,
I put a summary there, but
and if you can send the summary to the school, we could send it out on the alert now as well.
Yeah, definitely need an
So-
alert now for them to look at the
so all-
website,
That way they'll have the latest bus routes with the adjustments.
and I'll be sitting right by the phone waiting for the phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd just like to bring up, I mean, I know I'm the bad guy here for saying this, but I'd like to look at the contract again too, because my understanding was so we increased to 7 buses, 7 routes. So I guess even though we're increasing the routes, we're paying for 7 buses, which was the whole thing that we did last year, was increase to 7 buses, but we're only getting 6 buses for the next 60 days. I feel like
At the 35 to 40 minutes, the contract states we're going over the time. That's why I'm asking for your acceptance and approval of eliminating it, because we're going over your contracted time. So right now,
we're going over our contracted time because you can't provide what you said you could provide, though. That's not our fault. I mean, it's a little bit of a give and take here, too. I'm just saying,
Adding more
we were told that
miles.
we needed 7 buses last year,
Yeah.
that we had to have 7 buses, and here we are with 6 buses and getting by for the next 60 days.
You know what started all that mess last year is the prior negotiations with the teachers on school time change that I wasn't included in, and the time change was thrown on my lap with a few weeks to adjust.
But you run a business, I don't know that any bus company is included in negotiations with teachers.
Usually, there is discussion between administration, will this bus time work, will that bus time work? I've had it with other administrations.
You have, but anyways, I just want that
going
noted
forward,
that.
We'll try to be more communicative about these things.
I just think
going
that, I just want that noted that I think that.
I'm just trying to get through a hard time right now, and I apologize.
Absolutely, I'm just saying that we were told one thing, that we needed 7 buses, and now we're down to 6.
Any
so.
further discussion? Ready to vote then? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, motion carries. Thank you very much for coming.
I'll stay in contact, and we'll go out and check out Gaviot soon. Mr. Jandevar.
Will you come back for the next meeting then as well to give us an update on that,
Date?
or send us, it's September 1st? Or a letter or something to the SAU would be fine.
Yeah.
So we can bring her recommendation
That'll
and
be-
his recommendation back. I don't know if she needs to
Yep,
come to reiterate what he's gonna tell
If
us.
you need me after we've checked it out, of course, I will come back.
okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
One of you guys give me a phone number so we can include one of you at least? Okay.
on to our agenda, regularly scheduled agenda now, with the approval of minutes of 8/4/16.
Move to approve the minutes of August 4th.
So, second.
I believe we have one correction that you've done already. Do you know what line that is?
And 81, 381, Betsy Colburn.
Colburn is L.
Colburn.
Anyone have any other corrections or comments that they would like to do with this? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion to approve the non-public minutes from August 4th.
Second.
Any discussion there? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Marjorie?
Good evening. I'll start with the monthly financial report, which begins on page 14. As you know, we've been working on closing out the financials in anticipation of finishing the DOE and MS 25s, which are due to the State Department of Education by September 1st. So everything in here, for the most part, was as up-to-date as I could get it before I had to work on the DOE report. I've been working on those Nottingham, Northwood, and Stratford, because all 3 of them have to be done. So last week, almost 2 weeks ago, we started working on those and closing out all the purchases and following up on all the outstanding orders. So with just the monthly financials, I wasn't sure if anybody had any questions, or if you just want me to start on the DOE report. And I'm not sure how in-depth you want me to go with the DOE report. Nottingham last night, I believe it took an hour to an hour and a half to go over.
So anybody have any questions? Let's start with the financials, I guess, the monthly financials. Anybody have any issues or questions they'd like to talk about with that? See what we got.
The monthly financials were the year ending, right? Or do we have the monthly financials for the new year?
Year ending.
Year ending.
All right. I had no questions on the year ending monthly financials.
Do we have other financials for the coming year, or?
I don't have those yet because those aren't even really begun yet.
Yeah, okay.
School hasn't started. The only thing that's really in there right now are the purchases from the summer. So where school starts in a couple of weeks, where the teachers need to get paid, so our payroll department's working on making sure that everything's encumbered before everybody comes back. With the last minute changes, with the last minute resignations we've still had, so, I mean, there's a lot of paperwork going back and forth to make sure everything's up to date as we can.
These are final, then?
These were
All
not
closed?
final,
No.
because I needed to finish I needed to get the financials out in the packet before I could work on the DOE report, because of the time constraint.
So for your next report, will we have a finalized version?
I can give you a finalized version before the next meeting if you want. We have one order that is still outstanding from the McGraw-Hill purchases, from the textbooks that were purchased in April. There seems to be a lot of books that we didn't get that were sent to other schools, yet we're being billed for them. So we have the staff here at the office working on those because we actually physically don't receive the items. So they're working on closing out those purchase orders. So for the DOE report, I included that encumbrance as an expense because that's the best that I can do right now.
Any other questions on the monthly financials? Good. Can you give us a quick overview of this, and we can
Sure.
see about getting into details we need to?
Did anybody in the audience want a copy of it? It's a 35 financial page report. Joe, would you like a copy? You want a copy?
I do not.
No, okay.
Thank you, though.
You're welcome.
You guys are helping me out.
So, just so everybody understands, basically what the DOE report is it breaks down every aspect of the financial statements that we have, from your revenues down to your expenses, and they separate it out by fund, by regular ed, by special ed, by co-curriculars, by student services, transportation, and then it also breaks it out by elementary versus high school. So the first page that you have there is your balance sheet. And at the bottom, actually, one of the first things that you guys kind of have to vote on tonight, if you will, is that 2.5% retention that you guys have for emergency purposes through the town. That actually decreased by $431 with your final tax rate from last year. So that went from $216,047 down to $215,616, which is on page 1, line 32, down at the bottom. You don't have to vote on it now, but it's something, you can't retain more than that amount. Basically, it's 2.5% of your town appropriations.
Oh, I see. So you're saying this is 2.5%?
Yeah,
215
and I
is
brought the tax
2.5.
rate,
Yeah.
just in case anybody wanted to see that,
Motion to approve.
to verify that. Oh, vote already? Okay. Okay. I thought we'd wait until the end of the report,
Say
but,
that again, though, it's 2.5% of the town.
of the town appropriations. And just for your records, I did bring the tax rate from 2015, and it's right there, at the bottom. I actually used to calculate it myself, but now their system online actually does it, which is nice. So that's page 1. Pages 2 through.
Motion to get, yeah, get a motion. on the floor.
I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
There you go.
Then we get into the revenues, which is pages 2 through 6. And now we get into the part where it's breaking it out by your revenue, by general fund, by your food service fund, and by your trust, by your capital reserve accounts. So if you look on page 2, the current appropriation, the $7.5 million, that is what was raised by taxpayers this year.
Do you still have another one?
Yeah.
this happened to me last week where my pages are not numbered. Are yours?
Yep. And then just to give you guys, one of the things about this spreadsheet, when you're looking at these right here, these sections, so right here it says page 1, line, whatever it is, and then whatever account it is. So when I'm referring to those, when I'm referring to the page numbers and the account line numbers, that's where it all happens. You're welcome.
I should have just picked one.
Anybody else? So, and then, another double check what I do is when I get this packet from the state to fill out, they also give me their revenue of what they recorded that they gave us this year for CAD aid, adequacy aid, your New Hampshire education tax, and I make sure that that agrees to our revenue statement, and then I know I'm okay to be able to put it in these reports.
Oh, that's on page 4.
You're on page 4?
Is that on page 4, the adequacy aid grant? I
Yes.
was just looking for it.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it breaks out your food service by your state funds versus your federal funds and your food service sales. And then on page 6, you can see that the transfer from the food service this year was $35,000. Any questions on the revenue? I don't want to move too fast for you guys, I'm just,
I think you're going at a good
Okay.
pace.
So we had 25 in the budget, and we had to move 35.
correct. Which was better than not budgeting at all, in my eyes. I mean, we were trying to get there, so if I could get all the school districts to budget that way, I think we'd be in better shape. Pages 7 through 9 is where I was talking about where I break out the elementary versus the high school costs. And then when we get to this section, we break it out by salaries, and then employee benefits, purchase services, supplies, property, and other. And I double-checked everything before I came here tonight, and all of these figures do agree to the financials. So if you look at your total regular ed expenses, it agrees to your total regular ed expenses in there. One of the things, when we spoke about a few years ago about breaking out the elementary versus the high school costs, this is where that helps me immensely. Because if it was just one line, especially when it comes to special ed, if you have 10 students there that are going to 10 different schools and then they have different transportation services, I actually have to sit down with special ed and it takes like an extra day or two to get that information broken out by what is regular ed and special, by what is elementary versus high school. Page 8 is blank because we don't break out the middle school. We're a K through 8 school. So that's what pages 7 and 9 are. Page 10 is where it breaks out your principal for your bond and your interest. And then it also accounts for your food service transfer that we did, as well as your trust funds. And then at the bottom, it also asks for a breakout for charter schools. So I do take that charter schools out of your regular education piece of it. And then all pages are blank until you get to page 15, which is where we break out the cafeteria costs. Page 16 breaks out the capital reserve funds, the amounts that we transferred into the capital reserves, as well as the interest that they earned for the year. $17 is blank, and 18 goes back to the balance sheet for the capital reserve funds, to tell you how much you actually have in cash. Okay. To me, it's kind of a duplication because that's what's on page 1.
Mm-hmm.
Page 20 breaks out your long-term debt for that bond, and it wants to know, how long your bond is for, what the interest rate is, what your principal balance is going to be due this next year, and so forth. And for you guys, it's done this year. You guys just made your last payment, so we're all set with that now. And then page 21, 22, and 23 are just kind of like supplemental forms that they want me to break out further.
These forms stay the same year to year, or are there changes?
I'm sorry?
Do these forms stay the same year to year, or do they?
We can't use the same form every year. Every year they
Every
send
year
us
they
a new one.
send a new template.
And sometimes in the template, there is information that I can't change, like there's another supplemental form that they changed, and at the top of it, it says salary and benefits 2013 and 14. It's not, it's 15, 16, it says it, like it's there twice, and I just can't change it because it's all password self-protected.
Yeah. I hate those.
And then basically, when you get to page 24, you did a good job when that column 5 is all zeros. If that's not zeros, we know that there's an issue somewhere, and you kind of have to go figure out where you forgot to allocate for something. And then 25, I mean, a lot of these pages, like 25, I have no say in calculating any of that. That's what they calculate for themselves, depending on everything that I just filled out.
So why is the cost per pupil division by zero error there?
Because they have to wait for their approval over at the DOE, and I think they take other things into account from this, so we don't get that back on here. Again, that's our formula, I can't change it,
Yep.
so.
Sorry, real quick, just on 21, under legal.
Yep.
Why is that 0? Like, is that
Because
because
that's.
it's under something else? Because I know we pay.
Page
legal.
21 is breaking out all of the special education costs.
So we don't break it down?
We don't break it
Okay.
down that way.
Okay.
If we did. Right, and a lot of that information, you won't even see on the lawyer's bills. They don't break it down by special ed, regular ed, librarian. I mean, it's just something that they don't do.
Okay.
If they did it, we would record it.
Okay. Sorry, thank you.
Nope, you're fine.
Anyone else have any questions on the MS-25? Anything else interesting you'd like to tell us about it?
The only other thing I have is on page 29, that's where so we just went over the DOE 25.
Oh,
So
my mistake.
I have the sign-off paperwork here tonight. Just like I told Nottingham tonight, if you are not comfortable signing off on this tonight, I'm okay with that. There is a joint board meeting on Monday. This report's not due until September, so if anybody has any individual questions, they're concerned about signing off on this tonight, and you want to get your questions taken care of with me, and you want to hold off on signing it, that's fine. I can leave the paperwork at the SAU for anybody to come down whenever they want.
But our next meeting, September 1st, would be too late.
It would be too late. But going on to the MS-25, that report, again, it's all password, cell protected. I can't change anything in there. They took all that information from everything I entered on the DOE. So,
All right, there's your 2013-14 salaries.
exactly. But then like a couple lines down, it actually says 15, 16.
Yeah.
So,
Anybody have any other questions? I'll look at this over and I'll sign it.
okay,
On Monday, Black Friday.
that's fine.
Imagine most other people will do the same. It's up to you.
And I was afraid if somebody asked questions today, honestly, I might not know the answer because I literally just went through 3 of them in 2 weeks and my eyes are kind of going cross-eyed. So,
Well, we know where you live. I mean, work.
no, yeah. Even though I'm sure it's not hard to find out where I live.
What was the building aid for?
The state aid?
87,000?
That is just the school building aid that we've gotten for years. I think I contact them every year to see when we're actually going to be cut off. I don't actually have a definition of what exactly it's for, but it's been pretty consistent at 87,814.
So you think we'll have it next year?
That I don't know. I'm actually working on, the revenue piece of this is also due by September 1st, and I've put in probably 4 phone calls to the DRA within the past 2 days because that form is actually not online. So I can't fill that out, and I didn't receive it from anybody. So.
I'm just wondering if our bond is going away, and I know it is this going to go away too?
I think they're related. I do think they are related, so.
We can expect to see that go away then.
Correct.
So, and I'm sorry, I don't know the answer. When we budgeted in revenue in 16-17, did we put that in?
You still actually might be able to account for it this year because you still have your bond this year. So when I budget for next year, that's when it will be
So
taken
we'll need
out.
an answer by what it is, and is it going to continue
Exactly.
when we budget again?
Yep. I call them every year in regards to all 3 schools and see if I can get a list for that school building aid. I don't budget blindly for it, so.
Any other questions on this, or are we okay to move on to something else, and we'll look at this in our ample free time? We'll get back to you.
Sure.
Next up, we want to have a discussion on the representation of capital reserve in our budget.
So
I know you've talked to people about it, so yeah, go ahead.
So I think the question is people are wondering why we account for that in the financials for the capital reserves and why it's in there and why we just don't take it out. When we go through the budget process and when I enter everything on the DRA website, I have to tell them if your operating budget got passed, if your default budget passed, so we have that figure. So then that number's in your financials when we approve the budget. I then adjust the budget for every warrant article that was passed, because that way I know when I look at the DRA website and I look at that, I know my bottom line figure should be that. Not only that, but it does have to be expensed out of your money. So I'm taking the money out of cash. The money's got to have an offset somewhere. So that offset is that account. I remember years ago, it was talked about, you know, we're not being transparent enough and everything like that. So for me, I don't feel like it's proper to be hiding that because that money actually is coming out of your budget. It was a warrant article that was passed. It's something that we're funding, and I have to keep track of it. And for me to start creating different reports because somebody, you know, people don't want to see it on there. Do you know what I mean? Like trying to keep track of which report to give which person. To me, if I'm looking at your financials, I want to see your total revenue and I want to see your total expenses. That's going to give me your total bottom line.
So, can I ask a question then? Is there any way we could just reorganize our financials then such that we have our budgeted expenses, our totals for revenue, basically everything except for the transfers to the funds, and then have another bottom line? You know what I mean? Like a sub bottom line, which is our budgeted amounts.
Okay.
And then a transfer, and then we can have total,
Right.
you know, net gross, or whatever you want to call it, net bottom line, which is, would that be something that'd be doable?
I think we can
But at
move it.
least-
I don't think it's that big of an issue. I can just create like a different account group.
Right.
And just move it down to the bottom.
Right, that's what I was
fine.
thinking. And then we would have a bottom line that we could refer to for our budgeting. Does that help you? I mean,
I don't understand what she said, I really don't. So, let's just pick on the 16-17 budget. We will not know until next March whether any money
Right.
will be approved to take out of any potential surplus in the 16-17 budget. What we have in reserve right now, and the potential of taking out 80, 90, 121, which is what it was for 2 or 3 years in a row, has no relevance to the 16-17 budget. What does have relevance to the what does have relevance to the 16-17 budget is when we vote in March, and assuming we're going to put some money in warrant articles that we would like to beef up, I can see the potential of needing to go back to the Co-Brown issue. And and that's approved, then that money will come out of the 16-17 surplus. What she has in there has no relevance to the 16-17 budget. Nothing, zero, nada.
Actually, it does.
Well, not to me,
Because
it
if you
doesn't.
look, the warrant articles say, this is for the budget, these are not going to be funded until July. So those warrant articles that were voted on and approved in March, those get funded right now out of July. That's why I prepared the DOE report. That's why that $90,000 is being taken out of
They
your
get
total
funded
fund
out of the,
equity.
the ones that were approved in March,
Mhm.
and we had this argument 3 years ago,
Mhm.
were funded out of the June 30th, 2016 ending money.
It's coming out of that surplus, but we don't
Right.
fund it until July 1st.
Well, that's
We don't
fine,
fund it until the
but
DOE
it's
report's done and we know that
Funding
that
it out
surplus
of,
is
it's
there.
still coming out of the 15-16 year, not the 16-17 year.
The warrant articles are 16-17.
I
my
see what, I see what she's saying, though. I mean,
Funded as of July 1st.
It's-
Yeah,
you-
I
you
see what
can't
you're
fun-
saying.
Right. So so if we took those warrant articles out of there, that whole entire money would be going back to the town as opposed to
If you
putting
took
them in the
money out
capital
of
reserve.
what?
There's $90,000 that we're supposed to fund,
Right.
that were voted on for the capital reserve funds as of July 1st. That gets taken out of your money that's going back to the town
That
right
goes
now.
into 16-17.
But it
budget.
came, it's coming out of the
Okay.
15-16 years' money.
Well, the surplus is.
It's
From
the
the surplus,
surplus,
yes.
right,
We had a surplus of X amount
know
of
what-
dollars,
right.
and that's going to reduce that surplus.
The surplus comes out of 15-16, the expense comes out of 16-17.
So there's a
Thank you,
transfer,
Bob.
so there's a transfer from one budget to the other.
Correct.
Is what's happening, right?
Correct.
There's a transfer of the surplus from the 15-16 budget to the 16-17 budget.
Right.
That's why I don't see sometimes in here either. That's the part that confuses me, right? Because we don't see that as part of our revenue for this budget,
Right,
you know?
right.
But you wouldn't see it part of the revenue for that budget because it
Well,
shouldn't
the
be.
previous years we would, right?
If there was something voted on, it would be yes.
That's the part I don't understand, I guess, is that we don't see that. Because it's going from one budget to the next budget and then being immediately spent from the
Right.
later budget. So it seems to me there should be some record of that transfer. You know what I mean? It should come in as revenue to this budget. If you look at the budget by itself,
I can actually give you those reports. They're not on here. Your reports were never created to show that information. But if that's what you want, I can provide those reports. Because basically what happens is, we write those checks once all these reports are done, when the board votes on everything. We write those checks out, so it comes out of your cash account, and then it comes out of your expense. I then have to go and do like transfers in and transfers out, journal entries, to show that that money's there.
right? Well, I'd be interested in seeing that, I guess.
Okay.
It'll just make, then we can point to it and say,
Yep.
you know, this is where that money came in, this is where the money's going out.
Exactly.
You know?
Yep. We can
In
do
the
that.
budget by itself, you know,
Yep.
as a self-contained unit. But, and also, I think the subtotals for our entire budget amount minus the transfers would be useful too. But
Okay.
That's just my opinion. So right now, our
He wants
numbers
to
are
see
gonna
it
be
broken
off,
out. He wants the warrant
So
article.
you're saying the 15, 16?
well, all of them going forward. Right now, if you look at our total bottom line of all the money we spent,
For 15, 16?
whatever, okay, sure.
Well, I'm just wondering, because
Yes.
that's what you have in front of you, so,
It has more money than we spent because some of that went into the capital reserve funds, right? That's not money we budgeted for when we were doing our budget, right? When we came up with our budget, we came up with a number, 14, what was it, 11.8 or something like that, right? Not 11.8 plus 121. So it'd be nice to see that 11.8 in there somewhere as a sub field, in my opinion, so.
So if I'm understanding you right, you're saying that the $90,000 that was approved in March to come out of the surplus, you're moving that 90,000 into the 16-17 year and then taking it out of 16-17, is that what you're saying?
It's expensed out of the 16-17 year, which is why it shows up on the financials.
From the unexpended funds from 15-16.
Right.
Yeah, be great to see that. I think it'd be great to see that. I think it'd be great.
It is confusing. I mean, we've checked with the auditors and DRA a number of times. Marjorie was on the phone with the auditors today trying to get clarification as to how to better explain this, but.
Sorry.
All right, well, you're okay with that? Is the board okay with that request then? We'll see some of those numbers a little bit differently, and you're good? Right.
I mean, I do what you want. I don't understand. I'm being as honest as I possibly can with you. I don't understand. And I don't think I'm a stupid person. And I really like math, and I like budgeting. So I'm just going to look into it some more. I really don't get it. You know, to me, it's very clear that $90,000 was approved to come out of the 15-16 year. If you're moving money, I don't get it. So I'm just going to have to,
But
you know,
it
and
did
that's
come
why
out
I
of the
asked the New
15-16 year.
Hampshire School Board Association to have, because I don't think I'm the only one in the state that doesn't get this and would like to get it. And I've asked him, and when I get home, I'm going to email Barrett Christina, because he didn't do squat with what I asked, as usual. But I really would like to understand that. That's all I want, is to understand it. And I don't think that's an awful request. You know, I was elected to make these decisions, to sign these, well, I don't know how many pages this is, and it's very complicated. And I just would like some simple explanations that make sense to me.
What can we do to help you, Tim? I don't know what you're asking
I'm going
from
to
me.
find somebody.
I don't know, there is a
explain
simple
this to me.
explanation to things
Yeah.
sometimes. That's the
Yeah.
other problem. I don't know, I'd be happy to help you. I mean, I just don't know what you're asking for and how to give it to you.
I'm trying for a better way to make you understand, and I'm just, all I know is it's the surplus from the 15-16, and we don't fund it until July 1st.
Well, again, I'm going to look into it. There's a new group that has started in the state, and we've had our first meeting, and one of the things we're really going to key in on is budgeting, and I'll see if they can help me out.
Can I come?
Sure.
Hey, if you have any insights you can pick up, I'd love to hear about them too, coming in. Charlie's Tractors, is there anything you want to say about that?
I was
It's in the
just
pa-
asked
in the
to
packet.
provide the invoices that we paid for the year.
So I don't think it, so I'm the one that asked for that, and I don't think that it included the bill that we just paid for 2 weeks ago.
Did not include that one because we didn't have that one when the
Okay.
board packet went out.
And all I'm saying, so if you look at it, you will see that in November, and we're being fleeced. Now, whether we're fleecing ourselves or we're being fleeced is another question. If you look at the bill for November of last year, I think it was November 20th, so you'll see that we're paying for air filters, oil filters, and spark plugs. Air filters, oil filters, spark plugs, and there's something else. Then if you go to the next time he has a tractor, we're paying again for air filters, oil filters, and spark plugs. In fact, there's at least 3 bills in there that we're paying for an assortment of spark plugs. And I use a tractor right now probably every day of my life.
But I think the one thing that you have to look at on here, and I don't think they spell it out, he doesn't spell it out very well, is that it's more than just one tractor. It's more than one vehicle.
Well, how many tractors do we have?
I don't know exactly, but we have a riding lawnmower. We have 2, okay? And
Pushing
Well, I
mowers.
wanted the
This one's
bills for the
snow
tractor.
blowers.
That was the bill that we had last week. And my specific complaint was, and if it wasn't portrayed to you, I'm sorry. My specific complaint or query is, we continue to spend an incredible amount of money on a tractor, and I've been in town 20 years, and I've never seen it. I've never seen this tractor. And it appears to me that there is a variety of spark plugs and everything else, and it just goes back to, you know, sometimes I have to harp it a while, but we were paying $1,300 a door, and you remember that. And now we pay $800 a door, because we put it out to bid. And that's a big difference. Every one of those doors that we buy in this school, and we have a lot of doors, is another netbooks in the hands of a child. And that's the way I look at it, and I'm always going to look at it that way. So I'm very concerned about the continued expense of this tractor. So I don't care about riding lawnmowers or snow blowers or whatever else we have. I was concerned about our tractor and the bills for that tractor, which are a lot in the last little bit.
And you asked for all of the invoices from Charlie's Tractor. You didn't
No,
specifically.
we were talking about the tractor. I brought up you can go back to the minutes. We were talking about the tractor, and I wanted the invoices on that tractor from Charlie's Tractor. That's what I want.
I think we have them. They're just, if there's other stuff
Well,
mixed in, there's some other stuff
I
mixed in.
just, I didn't have time, once I saw him, to go back and find the bill from 2 weeks ago. I just wanted to see if we paid for air filters, oil filters, and spark plugs back then, too. I'll look it up when I get home. I believe that we need to look at the expense on this that we're doing on this tractor.
Okay, any other questions from Marjorie? I do have one. We were gonna, I think we meant to put this on the agenda. I mean, it might be what you're asking. Is how we're going to represent our food service lines going forward now.
Okay.
You
You actually.
Is that what you're gonna ask?
Yes, exactly. So we got a bill for $17,000. Where is that going to show up? And
So you're still gonna have your food service accounts. They are still going to make deposits. I'm working with your treasurer right now on how to get that set up for them to be able to make the deposits into our bank account. So everything there is still gonna operate the way it was. They're gonna make the deposits. We still have to record them on our side. As well as the expenses. So now we have a contract with them. I compared that amount of their invoice to the contract that we have. So basically, we're gonna get 10 installments of that invoice, because that is what their contract says. So we're gonna get a bill like that every month. In June, we're only gonna pay half of that, because that's when they're gonna readjust their bill, kind of like Co-Brown does for June. You adjust the days, the rest of your days for your students and everything like that. So at that point, that's when they're gonna adjust their last invoice for us, because our contract does say that we're not gonna exceed more than $3,000, whatever.
So it's all gonna go basically on one line now? instead of
Yes,
having it-
so now you'll have your revenues the way that they're still stated.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have a contracted service under your cafeteria line, because it's a contracted service. So that's how we're going to handle that.
Although, as you develop your budget, you're gonna have to have a contracted service line, you're gonna have to have
And that salary line.
a salary line for that position of the paperwork free and reduced lunch manager. And it would probably be wise to have a replace equipment line in there as well.
So there's a replacement equipment line there.
Right,
There's
so
already
like that.
salary lines there. I'm just gonna have to, create a new one for
Contracted
that
service.
position. So even though they said it's only gonna be $3,000, because we have to hire that new position to take on that additional role. So you're looking at an additional loss on that side.
Right. Any other questions from Marjorie? Here. Bob, are you gonna do the free reduced lunch staff position as part of your?
Yeah, I've got that under
You have
personnel
that?
report.
Okay, all right, cool. We'll wait on that then. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
I think you can go home too, probably. I think we're done with you unless there's something you see coming up that you'd like to be involved in.
All right. Well, email me questions on that DOE report.
Alrighty. Ms. Young, it's your turn.
Good evening. I have rather a lot tonight, or it feels like that, so I'll try to be brief. You have my written report in the packet, and then I also handed out my report in between reports tonight. So the few things that I have for your sort of consideration and approval, the handbooks are in here. I am hoping for you to approve both tonight with the disclaimer that every time I look at them, I find another typo of some sort, so I would like to be able to, fix commas and periods, but that the substantive material in there be approved. And also with the disclaimer that this was a big project. It's not done to my level of satisfaction by any means, but it's as done as we can get it with school starting in a week. So those are two things. I also, in my report, provided a description of a building leadership team member, which is an opportunity to sort of formalize a distributed leadership model in this building, and stipend that out of REAP funds, which there is adequate money in there. So that's one item for your consideration tonight. I'm happy to answer questions on any of those. And then one other thing that came up just this week was Coach Rick Vino from Co-Brown approached us and mentioned that students coming to Co-Brown from Northwood are at a pretty obvious disadvantage in terms of volleyball tryouts because they don't have the experience practicing here that kids in other schools do. So Mike Brieger was part of the conversation. We talked about, could we do an IM intramural volleyball here and just slide the money that's slated for soccer, intramural soccer over, since we don't have an intramural soccer need at this time. So those are the things for your consideration. And then I also provided an updated schedule for the 2 teacher workshop days with the correct ending time. I'm not used to paraprofessionals and teachers having different ending times, so I just had 2:25 in my mind for everybody. So that is corrected and more detail. So I welcome questions.
How would volleyball intramural work? I mean, seems like we beat this around the bush every year.
Well, we were talking with Dave, what Dave was
Dave
pushing
wanted
for
it.
was a women's volleyball team, like one that would compete against other schools. Intramural would be just internal, so we'd maybe have a couple internal teams that would play each other, or maybe just one team.
You said Mike Brieger was involved with it, so I'm assuming he's looked at gym time and all of that type of stuff.
Yeah, so it's a fall sport, so it would be easier to do in the fall than it would be in the winter or the spring. I think the goal, depending on what our interest is in the intramural level this year, if we do that, the goal would be to get an interscholastic team going for next year, but that obviously would require some budgeting and planning and PR type stuff. So this was just a way to sort of introduce it to the kids. We also talked about either additionally or instead talking with the PE teachers here and seeing if we can bump up the volleyball exposure for the kids within the school day.
So it sounds like we have money budgeted for intramural soccer that we're not using?
Yes.
So we could use that, and will that cover what we need for equipment and things? Or we gotta
Co-Brown
get
is willing,
donations
we
from-
have some equipment, Co-Brown is willing to
Co-Brown.
donate some equipment. Co-Brown's also willing to run a few clinics. We're going to share the Co-Brown game schedule with our students and families so that they can get some exposure by attending games. And then the money would just be the stipend for the intramural coach.
And this would be co-ed? Is that what they're looking at, or?
I think right now we're looking just at girls. I mean, we could certainly put it out and see what interest there is.
How much is the money for the soccer?
300.
I don't have a problem.
Yeah, so- Sounds good to me. Do we need a motion for that, then? Would you like a motion? I'll make a motion that we do that.
Yeah, you should.
How about that?
Second?
Second.
Aye.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can you please, now, what else, the handbooks?
Yeah.
Can we just make a motion on that? That we'll accept them with the understanding that there'll be some typos fixed on the way for the staff and student handbooks? I'll make that motion.
Second,
No.
or you?
Yep. Any discussion on that? All approved? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. I'm sorry, what was that last request you were looking for?
So I included the building leadership team job description. So really approving the job description and approving the use of REAP funds to stipend that. I'm anticipating some questions, so I'm happy to address any that you have.
I just can't,
One of these last year? Is that
It was voluntary.
voluntary
Yes.
last year?
So it was not, people volunteered. What I'm envisioning is that there, with the job description, that there will be sort of an application process. Teachers will write a letter sort of detailing.
How many do you want?
Well, I want pretty adequate representation of all of the stakeholders within the school, so I'm thinking 7 to 10.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just can't find it. Is it one that you handed out, or is it in the packet?
It's on page 39,
Okay, thank you.
or it starts on 38. Sorry.
can you tell me about what the REAP funds? What are these?
That's the rural education grant. So it's a fairly flexible pool of money that we can utilize, basically to train staff to assist students. So this fits in quite nicely. This is actually a leadership team. This is a model that we're using right now over in Stratford, and we've seen some pretty good benefits from it over there as well. It just gives an opportunity to have real good representation throughout the building. It empowers the staff to be part of the leadership team. It's a nice model.
Motion to approve the leadership team model with a stipend of $800.
I'll second that. Any discussion on this?
So does that take money away from somebody else, something else? The REAP money?
The REAP grant we've been using over the last few years for, it's very flexible, and we've used it a lot for professional development opportunities that we might not be able to cover through the budget and things like that. So it really isn't taking away from anything else. This is a good utilization of those funds.
In your motion, did you mention that the funds are coming out of the REAP?
We have funds to come out of the REAP program,
I would also suggest a not-to-exceed number.
not to exceed 7?
10, I would say 10 at the
10
max.
people at $800 a stipend.
That's a quarter of our teachers. Are they all teachers?
Professional staff, yes, so it could be,
So that's a quarter of our teachers.
It's a pretty big team.
It's not to
Yeah,
exceed.
I mean, what?
well, you have 9 grade levels and then interventionist specialists.
I understand
so
that, but we're a
just-
small school. That's a quarter of our teachers. I mean, I would think,
Well, getting them involved in leadership would be a good thing, in my opinion. The more
Absolutely,
teachers
getting
we
them
have.
I don't disagree, but, I mean, whenever you start making teams of 7, 8, 10, 12 people, you start losing the effect of it.
There's, certainly that does happen. I agree.
But it would seem to me that a leadership team of not to exceed 7 people at not to exceed $800 apiece would be more than sufficient for the school our size. But that's me. That's, you can do what you want, I'll vote the way I want.
Right now, the motion is
10.
not to exceed $8,000 to be paid out of REAP. Is that adding? All right, I'll continue to second that with the amendments. So, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No. Yeah, no.
3-1.
You also have the letter from Fresh Picks that went home and is on the website and was emailed home through One Call Now and is on the website. Steve just updated the link yesterday so that the menus can be seen, accessed through the website. And you have the schedules. We have several different schedules for things like if we have an assembly in the morning. I gave you the sort of the big ones, the main master schedule, the related art schedule, and then if we had a delayed opening or an early release. And then for the new drop-off procedures, I did include that in the student handbook. There's a kind of clear and obvious updated link on the school website, and I did new graphics showing where buses will go in the morning and where car riders will go. I used an actual like Google Maps image of the school.
You did hand draw it?
No, I didn't. It's pretty fancy. You should check it out. I'm pretty proud of myself.
I will check it out.
And then Mr. Alford and I plan to be out front and assisting with drop-off, obviously, for the first few weeks, at least.
If anyone has any questions about the morning drop-off procedures, crossing guard discussion, was there something you're looking for that?
This is a position, if you remember, last year, we had a crossing guard in the afternoon to assist the buses to get out of the parking lot. It was included in the budget, and with the default budget, it's not in there. With the traffic flow in the morning and reversing some of the drop-offs with the buses, it was thought by the Chief DeRolay and everybody else that was out there that it would be really beneficial to have the crossing guard in the morning as well, to get the buses out, to get the parents out, and move the traffic flow so they're not backing up onto Route 4. You can see with that, at $15 an hour, 2 hours a day, it comes out to, with everything, $5,813.
So we just need a motion to approve it.
Yeah, and we feel that we can find that money, and we've got the health insurance money where we've got some, and I think when everything works out, we're gonna realize some savings on staffing this year too, because with our new hires, so we feel pretty comfortable that for $5,800, that's money well spent for the safety of everybody.
Motion to approve crossing guard for
5813.
5813.
Second that. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Yes or no?
No,
No. Aye.
I'm for it.
I said no aye. Excuse me. Like 4-0. Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Young?
I think that's it for me.
Does anybody have any questions for her? Okay. Thank you very much. If people don't mind, I think we should take a little 5-minute break here. Get back here at 8:20 to continue. Stretch your legs.
You're good.
All right. Dr. Godomsky, your report today.
Yeah, just one thing before that, the enrollment report, you'll see on page 124. I also handed out a more up-to-date, this has been a moving target for the last 2.5 weeks. We are enrolling students in every district, so the one that I handed out is probably the most accurate, but it's still moving, so just a little update on that.
But we still don't know if kids have moved out of town, right?
That's correct. The ones that had,
It's really just your guess.
we don't know.
Okay, that's all. And I understand that. There's no way you could know.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with that. It's just not a report that I'm going to bother looking at till school's in and we see how many kids we have.
Yep, there's been quite a bit of movement in over the summer, surprisingly, in all the districts, so we'll see. Some people have notified us that they're moving, but some don't bother until school starts, so. On page 125, you'll see the start of the personnel report. The first one is Nicole Schoenberg for school counselor.
Motion to accept Michelle Schoenberg, school counselor. Hang on, I gotta get there. Which one, tell me. Doing too fast. This is a salary of, thank you. 36,346.
I'll second that. Oh, thank you. Any discussion?
Oh, yeah. Based on what Tim said, I looked up the regulation for the state of New Hampshire. I was curious if he was correct or if the teacher who spoke.
Full of baloney.
No, actually, you were both correct. It's very interesting. So if you look up the Administration of Minimum Standards in Public Schools, is this the document that you were referencing? It says that the counseling load in each elementary school shall not exceed the equivalent of one full-time certified school counselor per 500 students enrolled. But then it says the counseling load in each middle school and each high school shall not exceed the equivalent of one full-time certified school counselor per 300 students enrolled. So I wasn't quite sure what to do with that, because we're an elementary school and a middle school combined.
Well, you could say that, but that battle's been fought. We do not have a middle school.
Okay, well,
Legally,
that's,
we do not have a middle school.
so what I decided to do to answer the question for myself was to figure out what schools who are also K through 8 do and how many school counselors they have in the region. And you can see their enrollment numbers and the number of counselors that they have in Epsom, Deerfield, Stratford, and Nottingham. And everybody who is a similar size to Northwood has one. So I'm a little confused about why we need 2.
I'd just like to point out that Gilmanton also has 2. They have 405 students. Lancaster Elementary School, which I know they're up north, but they have 385. They have 2. I have on here, I don't know, this has Deerfield actually has 2 school counselors, so I don't know where yours came from, but the information I have, they have 2. Deerfield Community School has 469 with 2. Northwood has 405 with 2. And Ellis School in Fremont has 423 with 2.
It's a few.
I was going a little closer to home.
I would also say that you need to be a little bit careful with this, because some schools also have a family liaison position that is not necessarily a guidance counselor position, so that's another position that's picking up some of the load along with this. And I always caution people about the state minimum standards. It says not to exceed. It isn't a recommendation of how many for each position. It's a not to exceed number, so.
I was the one who asked for the description, the job description of the guidance counselor as well at the last meeting, which I saw was in here, so thank you for whoever put that in there. There were some things in there that says that they're supposed to provide reports on their activities. I've never heard of such a report ever been given to the school board. I looked back through some minutes trying to find some sort of report on guidance counselor activities, and I never saw any reference to it, so. Pardon?
Do they report to us or do they report to the principal?
The administration.
Right.
Well, that may be true, but if they want our support, then they should, we should get some information. But I personally, I think you already know how I'm going to vote. I see no reason to have two guidance counselors in a school our size. I think the one we have should be doing the 6th, 7th, and 8th where I think it's needed. I really don't see the need of a guidance counselor in the lower grades.
I don't understand that either,
I don't
because
either.
you're not counseling them on the choices, options they get to take
Yeah.
for their classes. What are they counseling? What are you counseling a second
It's a
grader
state
on?
requirement that you have one.
I mean, we do have
We
one.
want one.
Right,
want
but
one.
you're
We
just
want
saying
one.
that there's not in the lower grades. It's a
No, I wanted to
requirement
cover
that
the
you
whole
have
school.
one.
Why can't the guidance counselor we have cover the whole school?
And I'd just like to point out that some of these schools that have only one school counselor also have a full-time school psychologist, which we do not.
Thank
So when you
goodness.
say that there's just one guidance counselor or school counselor, there is another person in the school that helps with those types of
So
things.
Deerfield, I know because I called them, they have one. So I called around, I didn't make a nice report like Bree has, but I deal with people in Deerfield all the time. They have one, they don't have a psychologist. I just don't personally understand what's going on with schools and all of these people that all of a sudden are necessary to educate students.
How long
And
have we had two guidance counselors for?
Oh, I'd have to go back and check. I think it predates.
Ever since I've been here.
It predates me.
When we had 550 kids, I understood it.
I mean, are they sitting around doing nothing during the day?
No,
They're doing a food bank, if that's important to you.
They're doing what?
A food bank.
It is important if there are kids that are
We have
going
a
home
town food
starving.
bank.
Yes, that's important to
We
me,
have a
but
town food
anyway.
bank.
What would you like to say, Bob?
Just a couple of things. First of all, I couldn't disagree more that you don't need a guidance counselor at K2. Your guidance counselor positions vary greatly when you look at the responsibilities from K4 and then to middle school and then high school. High school, you're using your guidance counselors for not only counseling, but you're also utilizing them for career choices, scheduling, all of those things. At the elementary level, especially the young elementary level, you've got a lot of other issues of, the things that happen at home that they bring to school, and some of the horrific things that kids are with families that are disjointed and drug addiction and all of those things that we can say it's not our job, but the bottom line is either we attend to those kids and meet their needs, or they're not going to be learning or able to be learning in the classroom. So I think that that's really important to keep in mind when we're talking about those younger kids especially.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just wondering why the guidance counselor we have can't cover that for the,
Well, I think that
when it's, I mean, it's clear that it's being done across the state and other locations.
I think that's debatable how well it's being done. And, can you do it with one guidance counselor? You can do anything with less staff. The question is whether you're going to be doing it well with less staff or not. And in this particular case, I think it's a very healthy discussion to have, but I think we also need to keep in mind that this position was approved by the town, this position was approved by the budget committee, this was passed in the budget for this year. And like I said, I think it's always a healthy discussion to have, but I would support it staying in this year.
I have to agree with that. I mean, if we want to cut a position, I think the way to do that is through a budget for next year. I mean, and we should have this discussion. I think it's totally doable, and we should.
I mean, we
think-
were
excuse
presented
me,
with the opportunity
what
to have
Dr.
this
Godomsky just
discussion.
said is totally untrue. The town clearly, extraordinarily clearly, voted to reduce the budget. Now, they didn't come out and say, in reducing the budget from 877, 11,877 to 11,710, they did not say, cut out a guidance counselor. They expected us to use our expertise and to make those decisions, and you guys can make your decision, and I can make my decision. But the fact of the matter is that the town clearly is upset about the level of the budget, considering the loss of students over the past 3 or 4 years. That's my opinion.
That's something that also hasn't been discussed, because we've talked about the enrollment numbers going down every single year for the last however many years, long before I got here, and as Tim says, teachers aren't being reduced, staff aren't being reduced, nothing's being reduced. And I don't think that this was presented to us as an option to, when the guidance counselor resigned, it wasn't presented to us as, we're losing someone, should we repost this? By the
But
time we
we don't
found
do
out
that.
about it, it was already reposted.
We don't do that for teachers.
I
We don't
think
do
that
that
we
for
should.
paraprofessionals.
Yeah,
We don't
we
do that
I'd
for
like to make a
librarians.
motion
should.
to make that
Yeah,
the
absolutely, we
standard
should.
policy.
No, I think that's
We
ridiculous.
we should, as,
We have a budget, and the budget was approved at one time by the town, and this is what we're going with. I think it's
no,
ridiculous.
the budget was not approved.
The budget we have was
budget was
approved
not
by the town
approved.
at one time. I didn't say it was last year. I said
Okay.
it was approved at one time for us to have two.
Sure, but things change every year, and then the budget was not approved.
The budget that we're using was approved by the town.
That is totally incorrect.
No, it's not. It was approved by the town the year before. It absolutely was. I can bring out the voting records if you want to see them. It was definitely approved by the town, otherwise we wouldn't be able to use it.
The town turned down your budget and gave you a much less budget.
Gave our proposed budget last year, yes.
Which included 2 guidance counselors.
Yes, and they reduced it by $177,000.
But it included, even the reduced one, included 2 guidance counselors.
Okay,
Am I
think I
wrong?
could do a lot with $36,346. I think we could do something with that
you're not even
elsewhere.
talking benefits. And that was never an option, a part-timer was never an option given to us, considering that we have less students.
Yeah, part-time guidance
you know.
counselor, that's
All right.
something that we could consider.
Can we vote on this? I don't think
Sure.
anyone's going to be changing their mind, so not the current discussion, but.
Aye.
All approve?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
No,
All opposed?
Nope.
No. So 2-2, motion fails. Next, please.
Next is a resignation of Jane Brogan, the neck tutor.
Motion to accept the resignation of Jane Groger. Tutor.
Second.
I'm just kind of curious, she certainly opened the door that she has some sort of issues and would like to talk to somebody about it. Have we done that?
Yes.
And is that going to be given to the board, or
I
that
could,
another thing
I
that
could
we
fill
can't
the
know?
board in non-public.
That would be nice, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Nominations of John Skomersky as part-time custodian, Linda Kramus for the AmeriCorps coordinator for that program, and Viola Canella for food service clerk.
So moved.
Second.
Did we open for discussion?
Yep, please.
Did we go to any of the other schools in our area and find out how many hours in pay that they're using for theirs?
We called up Barrington and asked them a lot of questions on how they handle that free and reduced lunch paperwork. In Barrington, being a single district, they handled that paperwork through the SAU office. And it's as far as hours, it's going to start off with probably 15 to 25 hours a week starting off, and then diminishing down to very few hours a week as we get. It's the initial rush. It's the first 2 months, 30 days to 2 months, where all the paperwork comes in, all of it has to be processed, and that's the biggest push. And then the hours on the back end are going to, it's minimal.
Barrington said they were
they had 25 hours a week of work for this?
The 25 hours a week work was, I went to Viola, who has been doing this here for a number of years, and she mentioned that starting off, it's a great deal of work, and then very quickly after that. It's all logging in the free and reduced lunch forms when they come in.
So
Don't
this
you
is
have like
So that's why we put
660
a-
hours?
That's what it says.
That's
right
why
here.
we put a not-to-exceed number of hours on there, understanding that right off the bat, for the first 60 days, there's going to be a lot of hours, and then it will diminish from there.
Is this a temporary position then? I'm confused about
No, it'll
even-
be all year, because we've got kids moving in and out all the time. But that's why we put a not-to-exceed.
So what if she reaches 660 hours and there's still more work to do?
We don't anticipate
back
that
to
that's
us.
going to happen.
Any further discussion on these?
And so you did all three at once?
I mentioned them all at once, you can separate them if you'd like.
Well, I think you did all three at once.
Yeah, is that okay, or do you want to separate them out?
I'd like you to separate Viola, and I would also like to say that I'm just thrilled that Linda Kramus is coming back to do anything for the school.
So John Skomersky, part-time custodian, there we go.
I'll second that. All in
So
favor?
did you withdraw your?
Yeah, withdraw the first one for all three.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Or nothing?
Linda Kramus for AmeriCorps Coordinator.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Viola Canella, Food Service Clerk.
Second.
So, in discussion, I mean, the amount of pay does not bother me at all, it's the amount of hours, and we still don't really have an answer on that. I mean, I'm more than willing to start it out if you wanted to reduce that to like 400 hours, and then if we need it, that's fine. But I'm gonna go and bother to talk to Kingston and Dover and see how they do it. You know, that's really what I expected to happen, is we would have some answers as to how many another school does, so.
If you want to reduce the number of hours and revisit it later,
That's
we can
fine.
do
That's-
that.
that I
mean,
would vote
this is
for.
this position has been incorporated into your food service
I
director
understand.
in the past. So,
understand, yeah.
as a standalone, we're taking our best shot at trying to get that as close as we
And
can.
I understand that, and you don't need my vote probably, but if you want my vote, it would have to be reduced until we had, the answers that I asked for. It's that simple.
So,
All right,
Can
let's just do all in favor.
well, I was
If
going
it
to say,
fails, we switch it.
well, we could switch it beforehand, I'm fine with that.
Either way.
With,
Then you have to withdraw and redo it.
withdraw, so, well, I never put that part in there, but Viola Canala, food service clerk, $15 an hour with a not to exceed of 400 hours, with the caveat that we will readdress this if needed, if she reaches those hours.
Second. We need the caveat.
All in
but-
favor of that one?
All in favor?
Aye.
At the bottom, I've got mentor stipends for Linda McDonald, Erin Duffy, Melissa Moore, and Sharon Plord.
Motion to approve.
With the exception of the new school
They're
counselor
informational.
that
Oh,
just
yeah.
failed.
They're informational. Right, so you would,
Oh, yes, sorry about that. Linda McDonald obviously would come off.
for now.
My mistake.
Second, did somebody
No,
second?
they're informational.
Oh, that's right, they're informational, sorry.
And on the personnel report that I handed out to each of you, these came in after the packet. I've got a resignation of Michael White, PE teacher.
Move to accept resignation with regret.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I assume 4-0 on that.
I've got a nomination of Sarah Rothaus for that PE health position.
So moved.
Also had signed a contract?
What's that?
Also had signed a contract?
Yes.
Second.
We've also sent a bill out.
Any discussion on those? On that one, I mean? All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Nomination of Deborah Clark, special ed para.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And our Title I funds, we held off on these until we got final approval from the state, what our allocation was, and we have received that, so we've got Mary Gagney and Linda Kahn, Title I paras.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right?
And lastly, we've got mentors, Jen Lenharth and Lauren Dow.
So moved.
Are these
All those are
informational?
They should be informational.
Yeah.
Did Michael White sign a contract with us?
Yes.
Cool. He'll have to pay that $100 in insurance?
That's correct. Just for my clarification, you voted no on a school counselor tonight. Does the board want to have a further discussion on the school counselor position
Yes.
at
I
a
would.
future agenda?
I would.
Fine with me?
Okay.
If this is reconsidered, when would we have to figure this out by too?
Well, at this point, it's,
Yeah.
you know, we're going to be opening without it. A couple of other things. Let me just get to my list here. We have a workers' comp hearing next week for a former staff member, and Wendy Desprez was requested to be at the hearing as a witness, and she would like to be compensated for her time since she's working elsewhere now. So I'm bringing that for your consideration for compensating her for her time to go to the workman's comp hearing on our behalf.
Do we have a precedence on this or anything?
Well, it's, the reason she's going, or requested to go, is that she has some detailed information that she observed that they would like to have, so, they meaning Primex, as far as the defendant in the workman's comp hearing.
What is the compensation that she's looking for, do you know?
Well, it's a workman's comp hearing, so if she receives it, then she obviously gets workers' compensation, which affects our rates.
No,
in turn.
I'm sorry, I meant Wendy, what is she looking for?
And she did not say. Her per diem when she left was $321 a day.
So is this going to be an all-day thing?
Probably not.
300 what?
$321.
320 divided by 8 is $40. So I make a motion that we,
Hold on a second. Eric, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I'd like to make a motion that we recompense Mrs. Desprez at a rate of $40 an hour for whatever hour she is at the workman's comp hearing.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Oh, I thought you had something to say.
No, that sounds fine. That's just looking to do something similar.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I handed out a right-to-know request. Tim had submitted the right-to-know request, and I wanted the board to know about it. I handled it consistently with the way I've handled right-to-knows in the past. There was one request that is being granted, and we'll get him the electronic records for the correspondence with Melanson Heath. And then the next two were about particular conversations that did not fall under the right to know, so those two were denied. This is my formal response to the right to know. Separate from that, it's obvious that a school board member has a question or two, and if the rest of the board would like, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
I'd just like to make a statement to the number 3. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the statement that was made in number 3 was in non-public. So yet again, something in non-public is being brought up in public.
Seal the minutes.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm just, thinking, and I believe I had said that I had gone there as a parent, not as a school board member, and there is a difference, and yes, I wear dual hats, but I did go as a parent.
Well, the first one, again, was a request for correspondence with Melanson Heath. We're getting that together. The request is for June 30, 2015, so we're going back over a year. I responded that I would have that. We have to go back through emails and other correspondence, so we'll have that by the end of next week. The second one, were any Northwood School Board members apprised that Dr. Godomsky provided our last vice principal, Ms. Cremoni, a waiver to renew her contract prior to his disclosure that he had done so when questioned by Tim Jandabar? More precisely, were any board member asked or informed of this waiver before or soon after it was given? Clearly a month or more earlier than disclosed by Dr. Godomsky to the entire board. First of all, there was no waiver given. I don't know what a waiver is, but a waiver wasn't put in place. Her contract for the 16-17 school year had been approved by the board, so she was approved to be an ongoing employee. She was set to resign, and I thought it was beneficial for the incoming principal to have somebody in place that knew what was going on in our building, as well as to keep the tasks going through the summertime instead of just having a vacant position. I gave her an amendment to her agreement that was approved by the board for the month of July, paying for that period of time. I recall that, and again, I'm tapping my memory, which as I get older is failing me. I recall having conversations with a few different board members who asked me, because they had heard about the resignation, and asked me about what the timing was and what the process was. So I shared that with them. And I feel that it's my job to make sure that these tasks are done. And nothing, really, it was nothing more than a substitute, keeping her on as a substitute in that position while we went through the process to fill the position with a qualified candidate. So that was the process that I went through as far as that question goes.
So I had asked if Mrs. Cremoni had signed a contract for 16-17 year. It is my recollection, and I think that was in public, so I'm going to get the video if I can, that you said that she had not signed a contract for the 16-17 year, that you had given her a waiver or something like that. I remember waiver for a month. And now you're saying that's not right?
It was not a waiver. What it was.
But you're saying she had signed the 16-17 year contract?
No. She was approved for the 16-17
Oh, all right. That I agree with, yeah.
And it was an amendment to the administrative agreement is what she got for the month of.
So my point is that a month or more went by. Normally, we would like to know that and try to get the information out. We've used many times, I can't remember the wording, that a position is pending, so that we would get our feet in with to get the best qualified.
We did that. We
applicants
posted
can.
an anticipated vacancy.
Okay.
An anticipated vacancy was posted, I believe I'd have to go back and look at the dates. I believe it was either late May or probably mid-June. So an anticipated vacancy was posted in anticipation of, she was accepting another job, but they had to go through that hiring process in their district as well.
Okay.
And the other one was Dr. Godomsky had a meeting with ex-principal Daypre, after which she resigned. School board member Hartford told the board that she had a conversation regarding Ms. Daypre with Dr. Godomsky just prior to resignation. Were there any other discussions with any Northwood School Board member regarding Ms. Daypre outside a regularly posted school board meeting in the 2 weeks prior to her resignation? First of all, I've had many conversations with many board members for many reasons over the year, including Tim. It's not uncommon for board members to stop by the office or talk after meetings or talk in the hallway. Individuals speaking have no power as a board. They don't make any decisions, but they certainly have the right to share their opinion on anything. It's not uncommon to speak to board members about, as individuals, about a lot of things. Quite frankly, I can't recall the timing of who I talked to the 2 weeks prior to the resignation. I talk to board members on a weekly basis, if not a daily basis. I've got either phone calls or personal conversations with board members.
And I guess I don't understand, it's not a quorum, so what does it matter? It's a personal conversation.
Well, and under the circumstances, when a board member speaks to me, I really feel like it's up to them whether they want to share their conversation with anybody, whether it's somebody on the board or anybody else, so
Tim
that's
doesn't tell
certainly.
us every single conversation that he's had with you or with
I can't
any
even
person.
remember the last conversation I had with Dr. Gnosky. It has
I'm sure
been
he's
a
thankful for
long,
that.
long time.
Recently, you're right, Tim, it has been a long time.
Long time.
But
But have you told us every single conversation that
That's
you
on
had?
purpose. The problem, as far as I see it, and I can see it the way I want, and I can ask information and get it or not as I want. We have some wonderful laws in this state. The problem, as I see it, is I believe that certain board members are being singled out and given far more information than others. I don't really care if you agree with that statement or not. That's how I feel.
Love your feelings.
I would strongly disagree with that. So
I'm sure you would.
it's, and I, to that I would say that I suppose board members 2 years ago could have said the exact same thing about you because you spent a lot of time down at the SAU 2 years ago. You spend no time down at the SAU now. So, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but, you know, I don't hide any information about board members. There were individual board members that asked me questions almost after every meeting and every time I see them. And quite recently, you know, you left pretty quickly after any of the board meetings. I'm not going to chase people around, but the conversations, you know, I don't give information to any board members on any of my boards separate from, you know, more information and withhold it from somebody else. But do I have conversations with board members all the time? Absolutely.
Thanks.
And they will remain private.
Anything else? Superintendent's report?
That's all I had. Oh, one other thing, I just want to say, I forgot to mention this. Mr. Gunter invited us to a luncheon the other day, and Marjorie and I attended with a number of people from the town to kind of foster the collaborative atmosphere and getting the tax rate set and getting the DOEs in and everything. So it was a wonderful luncheon, and appreciate Joe inviting us.
Hopefully the food was good, too.
We had it at Ma's and mine, so it was very nice.
Next up was kindergarten discussion. Unless somebody really wants to jump on that tonight, that was the thing, I put it on the agenda, so we could start thinking about what our plans were for full-day kindergarten, if we're just gonna not do anything, or add it as a warrant article, or put it in the operating budget. I think Mr. Wells would really like to be part of this conversation, so I have to push it off till next meeting, if people don't mind. There's just kind of a heads up to think about it, I guess, for our next meeting.
I'd like Mr. Rooney there, too, if that's possible, you know, to get his input from the special ed
First meeting, right?
part of it, too, if we could put it off till whenever he's here, too.
Other old business, parking lot items, I don't see anything in there too interesting for right now.
Oh, no, I meant, sorry, this was the, no, yeah, this was the bumper part. I put this was like put together a different way, and I put it in.
I guess the only thing is strategic planning. Have we gotten any hits on the Job posting?
That, I haven't checked recently. That closes at the end of the month, so we can
This
put,
month, so we still have-
yeah, we can put it on the first agenda for September.
Okay, let's do that. The only thing I see in our school board calendar that we need to start is to contact the unions to start negotiations. We've done that. Is there something we need to start moving on, like?
Yes, I was going to ask the board, when do you want to start? What do you want to do for dates? I'd be happy to be the liaison setting that up. You tell me when you'd like to go.
Okay, so I believe if my memory is correctly, we have Tim and Barbie are on the teachers one, so if you guys could get in touch with Bob and figure out what times work for you.
Yeah, just let me know and I'll be happy to set it
I
up.
believe it's-
Thursdays still are the only days that work for me.
I believe it's Shane and I for the paraprofessionals. So I'm pretty free, so we'll talk to Shane.
Okay.
Actually ask him, send me an email or something like that, or include me. I'll probably be able to make it anytime. Anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped right over committee reports. Was there any committee meetings, any committee reports in between meetings, or meetings? I did sign 2 more students for entering Co-Brown, so that was one thing I've been up to. Future agenda items.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's not an agenda item, but on previous agendas, there had been a spot at the beginning and the end for board comments, and I see that that's been removed.
No, we always did that as part of closing public comment.
Was it listed as just closing?
I think it's always been listed as just public comment.
Yeah, it was public.
And then when we just had a party, I forgot to
Oh,
mention,
was it?
I'm sorry, I did forget to
Okay.
do that in the opening comments,
Okay,
but,
just
yeah, no, we're
wondering.
still doing it. It's-
Just wondering.
yeah.
Thank you.
Future agenda items, what do we have so far for next week? We're gonna talk about kindergarten, strategic planning,
We've got kindergarten, strategic planning, guidance counselor discussion,
and the bus stop.
and the bus stop if it's ready.
Anything else anybody wants to add while we're here?
Nothing else from the parking lot or whatever.
No, I was just looking at, nothing really from the parking lot, the unions,
For August, update on summer maintenance facility renovations.
we already did that last meeting, so. Future meetings, we have a joint board meeting, I believe that's Monday at 6:15 at the SAU building. This is our first one in a while, so it should be a fun one, right? There'll be a lot to talk about. Our next regular board meeting is September 1st, and then another one on September 15th. This will be after school starts, so. Good to go. Any closing public comment? Sorry, Joe, sorry back there. You good?
That's all right, I know you guys are busy. I got just a couple things, very quick. Hey, school board. I wanted to let the school board know if the person you guys are bringing on for that AmeriCorps grant needs any help with the paperwork in the, up front. I used to do this for a living, and it's very burdensome. If that person wants any help, please let me know. I'm more than willing to help her out in any way I can. Second thing, lunch was good. Thank you for getting the paperwork in. It's, like I said before, come December, if we don't get that tax rate set, our bank account is dry. So the work you guys are doing is really saving me a lot of heartache at the end of the year. Third thing, I don't want to extend your budget or this meeting any longer, but I think there may have been a motion made that was not recognized earlier in the meeting.
What was it?
Motion to have, and I don't remember the wording, motion to have the administration bring all open positions to the board.
Was that, do you have that?
Second.
I did actually make that motion.
I hear my
Okay.
work, it's even in my
Yeah,
sleep.
no,
so-
Sorry.
No, sorry,
Yeah.
I missed it. I didn't realize.
Other than that, thank you guys, and again, thank you for the lunch. I really appreciate all the help.
I was gonna say, I don't recall it was seconded.
Okay.
Tim seconded it.
So
At
he's
least I
seconding
think
now.
he did.
All right.
Just now, yeah.
Oh, just now. You didn't second it earlier?
No.
As far as I know, I did, but I'm not going to argue. I did it now.
All right, any
Fair
discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion fails. Any other public comment? Betsy, you all set? Any board comment?
I would, yes, thank you. I actually had 2, but I'll just stick with one. I'm getting a kick out of the discussion around town as to whether a school board member is a conflict of interest or not. I've had that conversation over the last 10 years, probably 20 or 30 times. It's never been whether it's a conflict of interest or not to the other side, but only whether it's an acceptable conflict of interest. And for the most part, I think it is an acceptable conflict of interest, but the argument that it's not is kind of ridiculous to me. So in that vein, one of the things that really bothered me last year, it was all I could do to keep shut, was the support staff contract. I thought, mainly from the support staff negotiated, it was the worst negotiated contract I've ever seen in all of my life. It bothered me not to open my mouth because my wife works here, but I didn't. That will no longer happen. My wife does not belong to that union. I'm very proud of her for not belonging to that union. It is the worst union I've ever seen. And so when it comes up this year, I'm going to vote. Obviously, I think it's an acceptable conflict if you think it's a conflict. So I'm going to vote whether I like the contract or not, and I'm going to have a say as to what I think should or should not be in that contract. So I'm just telling you now, and if you want to get your lawyers out and see if that's legal or not, help yourself.
Okay, thank you. Any other board comment? Okay, seeing none. Is there a need to have a non-public session at the end?
Just if you want.
I would like to, yes, I really
Explanation
would.
on
Yeah.
the resignation.
Okay, we need a motion?
Motion to go into non-public,
Second.
under RSA whatever
C.
for personnel.
See.
C.
So, Barbie?
Yes.
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 I
Yes.
did.
Okay, so we're going to non-public.